Hello, everybody. We are going to get underway in just a minute. We're just letting colleagues into the call. A quick reminder that we do have French interpretation available for you. Nous avons interprétation en français si vous voulez participer plutôt en français. Donc, s'il vous plaît, choisissez ça si vous voulez. We will get underway in just a minute. On commencera dans quelques minutes. Great. I think that maybe we should get underway. There are still a few colleagues who are joining, but welcome everybody to the call. It's Katie from GFAN, in case you don't know me, but feels like a list of familiar looking names today. So welcome everybody. It's good to see you all. Just a quick reminder that the call is being recorded and that within the next few business days, we will place it on our website so that you can access it if you want to go back to any of the conversation or if you want to share it with colleagues. Or, if you just have nothing to do for an hour and feel like re-listening to the call. And a reminder for our colleagues that we do have French interpretation that's available on the call. Nous avons interprétation en français sur cet appel. So hopefully we can participate and utilize whichever language we feel most comfortable participating in. So today's call, we thought it would be useful to just go over a quick debrief from our side and invite colleagues who attended the World Health Summit in Berlin last week to also share any quick or otherwise thoughtful takes from last week's World Health Summit in Berlin, as well as going through a quick number of donor updates. And we have a number of colleagues who were able to confirm to join us for some quick updates to give us all sort of a top level reflection on the current state of their advocacy and what looks likely or hoped for in terms of the pledge ahead of the Global Funds event, which is exactly 1 month from yesterday. So we are really in that sort of last mile. So that is our agenda for today. Hopefully a lot of time for discussion and for colleagues to ask questions or add comments and information and context to the conversation. So we'll just get underway, I think. So what ended up with the change in sort of the timelines a few months ago in terms of the replenishment timelines and calendar, it became increasingly clear to us at GFAN that the World Health Summit was going to be a really critical opportunity for discussion and for advocacy around the Global Fund replenishment. So we took the opportunity as GFAN to be there, and many of you were with us, and it was lovely to see some colleagues around the various events. We were able, as we've talked about before, to host a number of sort of side events and to support some of you at your events and conversations that you had. I'm going to pass it over to Conte to share some of his takeaways, but a sort of last takeaway, my big takeaway, I think, was that an awful lot of the conversation at the World Health Summit was, I'm not sure focused is the right word, because I'm not sure very many of the discussions were yet focused, but a lot of conversations and a lot of discussion on the theme of sort of the future of the global health architecture. And so there was a number of different sessions, both, in the core summit as well as side sessions or, consultations with different groups, leading them for sort of their own processes. And so that was definitely something that seemed to be, I don't know, I guess a bit of the overarching theme for me and for many others at the summit. And I think the thing that was most striking to me is I don't feel like there's anybody who is yet pushing an answer or pushing a specific vision of an architecture. Most of the conversations that I participated in had people with interventions that, had some elements of things that they might, sort of like to see or like to prioritize, but there isn't yet sort of an emerging theme, and most people are attending and participating in these discussions and saying that they're, listening, and they're there to listen, and they're there to hear from others. I share that as a reflection because I think it's important to note that it doesn't yet feel like there's a clear opportunity or a clear stream of decision making or anything like that has yet emerged. I'm sure it will come someday, but that hasn't yet emerged. The one moment that some are looking at is around next year's World Health Assembly, and to make sure that sort of the right kind of decision points and the right kind of conversations happens at the executive board of the WHO, which I believe is in January or February of next year. So that's my sort of key takeaway, but and lots of ideas in terms of some work that I think that we can do as GFAN to support all of us as we move past the replenishment period and into the sort of conversion of pledges, implementation work, and starting to build up more resources for the future. But Conte, I'll pass it to you for some of your reflections.
Thanks, Katie. I actually don't have a lot to add there. I think what was clearly most relevant for advocates were these strings of conversation around global health architecture. Adding on to Katie's point, I would say that there was a lack of clear focus on a specific answer, and the type of answers that were proposed as answers were things that felt very much like as usual, like more integration, more collaboration, less fragmentation, but without any particular piece of language or approach that would justify, calling any of those like a new answer. I would say that, and it's largely relevant, I think, for our work right now, but it's interesting to sort of keep in mind, nearly all of the session was about artificial intelligence. And I think that was the other for the attendees that I think were more, medical professional, which are public health professional, share like a large majority of the attendees there. I think they would like come back saying that like the only thing everyone was talking about was AI, which was both interesting and like coming at it a bit skeptical. I think there were some, like, it was interesting to see that like probably a lot of good can come of some of the tools that were talked about. But with a number of colleagues, we were also surprised to see the general enthusiasm around the tools with very little thought put through some of the potential downsides. So that was sort of the other half of the summit for me, was really that contrast between very top level discussions on global health architecture with a general agreement that something probably needs to be done, but no clear hint regarding what that something should be. And then just AI creeping all over the place. What I would also say is that the WHS has a reputation for being a very technical, dry space, and one that doesn't leave a lot of space for advocacy, and I think that remains largely true. Though we did see advocates as speakers throughout the conference, and we'll come in particular to one important instance of that in the case of Priscilla. But it still felt like a minority presence, and it felt that that presence was allowed within very specific bounds, and there was everything was very controlled. So these were my takeaways. I would also say that we held a string of 5 events, which we're all very happy with. We had a representative of private sectors that came over to our meeting to talk about some of the investments they hope to make, and some of the things they hinted at during our session were then transformed a couple of days ago in the case of GSK into an actual pledge to the Global Fund, which we were very happy to see. We held a discussion with Speak Up Africa, or bringing in scientists from Africa to talk about some of the work that happens on the continent around malaria, around the 3 diseases, but malaria specifically, which was very successful, with a lot of opportunities for researchers to meet advocates, which in the case of malaria in particular really feels like an important moment. We had a chat with Peter Sands, and we talked about Debt to Health, again, if that was an important conversation to have, because as we will see, the German pledge included a lot of money specifically for debt to health. And so I will come back as a topic in the coming years. So that's it for me.
Thanks, Conte. I appreciate it. We are going to invite our colleague Peter Wiesner from Action Against AIDS, based in Germany, to join us now and share some of his reflections, because he's got a bit of a time crunch. And so we wanted to make sure that we got his reflections before we lost him to I think it's a complicated travel itinerary. So we're going to pass it over to Peter, but then I'm going to open it up to the floor and just see if there's other colleagues who had, any questions around World Health Summit. I'm seeing one in the chat, but also any other colleagues who were at the World Health Summit, if there's sort of some reflections that you have that you might like to share. But first, Peter, if I could pass it over to you for your reflections on the German pledge, which was announced on the opening day of the World Health Summit, and any other World Health Summit reflections that you have. Peter?
Yes, thank you for this opportunity. Can you hear me?
Yes, very clearly.
Okay, that's perfect. Yeah, thanks for the invitation. So as you all know, Germany came up with this pledge. There was a change within the last sort of few days before that. So the original pledge was 850. But then for some reason it was topped up to 1 billion. The 1 billion contain 50 million for technical assistance, and 100 million contains the debt to health sort of money that is put on the table, which is sort of a success for us and for others that worked around the debt to health, debt conversion for health issue. And this is exactly why we pushed for that event that we had together with GFAN. So thanks so much for giving us a chance to sort of propose that session. So this was basically the second event that we had on that topic. There was a parliamentary event just some weeks beforehand, and now we had the session during the World Health Summit. So this, I think, is pretty good. With the amount pledged, we are of course not happy. As you all know, the fair share would be 1.8 billion, and we asked for 1.4 billion. So we came out with a press release that was less happy than those from others, as you can imagine. But this is, I think, okay, because we have different roles here, and even German civil society, some organizations sort of congratulated the minister for the pledge, and we sort of focused on, this is a reduction of 23% compared to the last pledge, so we cannot really celebrate that. However, for me, the most important thing was, or a very good result of the pledge was that video that we did together. So we are focusing now on the G20 and sort of come up with messaging around, well, don't come with empty hands to the G20 summit, and there's still a chance to sort of raise, to top up to the 1 billion. And this is not only for Germany, this could be a sort of global ask to others. So that's why we sort of recorded that video quite open, and this was supported by GFAN as well, and then by our friends, Ina, I see you here in the call, our friends from the Ukrainian Public Health Alliance. So thanks so much for this collaboration. I'm not sure if we can show the video here. If not, you will see it on our web page. I just put the link in. With the World Health Summit itself, I share your concerns. We are unhappy with this event, and this unhappiness is shared by the Ministry of Health as well. So we had a roundtable discussion just one day after the World Health Summit, and this was sort of, even among those who represent the Ministry of Health, they are unhappy with the style of the conference, with community participation or the lack of community participation, and with this sort of traditional, let's put it like that, follow of one PowerPoint presentation after the other. So the Minister of Health, they put a lot of money into the conference, but the conference is not sort of run by the Minister of Health You don't have to forget that. And that they're trying to change that, but since they are the owner of the conference, their sort of abilities to change that are limited. But they're going back, and they will sort of confront the organizers of the conference to change that. And we agreed upon to write a letter to the state secretary. To sort of give recommendations on how we would like to perceive that conference. So if you haven't filled out your feedback sort of form, just be as precise and as critical as possible, because there are things that we really would like to see changed for future World Health Summit conferences. So this is what I have to say at the moment. Thanks to all of you that supported us with the video, and thanks so much for the open letters that we shared. There was one public letter targeted with German government by our friends from the Ukraine, and one organized by GFAN Asia Pacific. And this I think this sort of contributed to something that I wouldn't call a success, but at least, and so far it's the biggest amount pledged, but as I said, we would have wished to get more. Thank you.
Thank you, Peter. And thank you for that sort of update from your end in terms of the post-summit conversation around participation, because I think that's very helpful to make it clear that remains a discussion and something that you've been advocating for with your government and with the organizers of the summit for a number of years now. So I'm glad to hear that conversation continues, and hopefully we continue to see changes and improvements there in terms of its accessibility, and also that more perspectives are included and shared as part of the design of the conference and not as an afterthought. So I would like to open it up to any questions to colleagues around the World Health Summit or anything that Peter just mentioned around either the summit or the German pledge. And also, if you were at the World Health Summit last week or participating virtually in any of the sessions and you had any reflections, this would be an opportunity to sort of share your reflection or a key takeaway that you had with others. So any questions? Helpful if you can use the raise hand function. If there aren't any, then we will move forward on our next item. But Pernilla, I see your hand raised, so please go ahead.
Yes, just trying to see if you can see me. Maybe not. I guess my camera's not working. Anyway, thank you so much. I share your reflections. I was also at the World Health Summit. I share both yours, Katie and Kantan and Peter's, and good to hear that the German government is also invested in making changes. That's good news. First of all, also huge thank you to the GFAN Secretariat and the GFAN speakers that were there in Berlin. I felt it was super helpful, all your prep work that you shared, and the pre-meeting, and just also nice to have a space to come over and meet community colleagues, because it is really head spinning to be at such a big conference. For me, it was my first time. Although it was very useful for networking and getting a sense of, what's the talk of the town in global health, especially among sort of the high level. In addition to what you mentioned on the global health architecture, I've sensed this discourse among especially donor countries, that I've also sensed at other events and in talking also with Danish government and others, that they don't want to take responsibility, right? In the absence of especially the huge gap left by the US defunding. And so they're pushing it over to this talk about innovative and blended financing, and private sector partnerships. And I guess the whole AI discussion is also part of that, making efficiencies. And I felt this was just present in so many sessions. And sort of also this a little bit what you could call a marketization of healthcare, you know, like new innovations to, you know, investments in health, that investments not for like people, but more for sort of like making returns also, and to reinvest, instead of focusing on building, you know, systems and mobilizing public funding to create public health systems that work for all, you know. So that was one of my worry. And the other worry was, of course, also the lack of community representation, but also the lack of talk about human rights and how that affects access to health. And I felt that a little bit, and I know that I've said this many times before, but I felt that a little bit also from you know, the Global Fund, from our own Peter Sands, that this worry that I have a little bit about human rights and equal access and key populations being thrown under the bus in an effort to, you know, mobilize funding. And I know that many here share the worry, and I'm also sure that the communities and NGO delegations to the Global Fund board are gonna really fight hard to ensure that, of course, that this is still high on the agenda for the next grant cycle. So yeah, just a few of my reflections. Thank you.
Thanks, Pernilla. That's really helpful. I think it's really helpful in terms of, you know, the conversation around innovation, et cetera, is all very important, but so is the basic core funding of the systems and the work that nobody, you know, necessarily want, or not nobody, but some don't want to fund. And that's where the Global Fund has had a lot of success in terms of stepping in and funding key and vulnerable population work, et cetera. So thank you. Are there any other comments or questions around the World Health Summit? I'm not seeing any other hands raised or notes around that in the chat. Just pause for a second to see if there is. Okay. Peter, thank you so much for joining us. I know you've got some travel, et cetera, today, so thanks. And you'll keep letting us know how we can help with in Germany in terms of the last few weeks and seeing if we can get them to move a little bit on that number. So thank you so much, Peter.
Thank you.
So we'll just turn now to sort of back to you know, around well, gosh, I keep wanting to call it a pledging conference, but it's now a pledging summit, I think is what we're talking about. And there's a month to go. And I think, you know, we've been saying this and making this clear as we've been learning it. And so has the Global Fund when we've had colleagues on our calls, et cetera. This conference, this summit will not look the same as the last ones. It will be much smaller. It will be far less public. It will, however, be hybrid. So I know there are colleagues who have received invitations to attend virtually. So it's not the same sort of big fanfare moment that we maybe have used in the past to, you know, for that last minute kind of advocacy. Like we saw, for example, in the last replenishment, when although a number of G7 countries had pledged in advance, the US was hosting for the last replenishment. Japan had pledged about a month before the pledging conference, but a number of G7 countries just, you know, the conversation kept evolving enough that that we were waiting for the actual conference itself for their announcement. And so this one is a little bit different, and there is certainly a little bit more outstanding this time, but it remains to be seen for a number of countries where pledges will land in the next month, with that only early one being the one from the G7 being from Germany. I've heard Global Fund colleagues talking a lot about being sort of about 3 billion being pledged now, and that at this stage, you know, ahead of a replenishment that's a bit further ahead than we've been in the past. So, you know, I think that's useful. I think that's useful momentum for us to keep going and to remind potential donors that, you know, others are coming in. You know, other countries, private sector foundations are coming in and making pledges. And so hopefully that's helpful to those who are still considering their amount or considering where they jump in. So the key part of this session for today is to get a little bit of a sense in some of those in some of our bigger donor countries, where and how we as advocates globally can support colleagues over the next 30 days or 20 or 30, 29, whatever it is, days in terms of getting those pledges across the line. And so we did invite a number of colleagues to sort of share their top level reflections on the current state of affairs in their country, implications for the timing and the size of their pledge, and asking how we can support. There've been a lot of letters. Our colleagues from GFAN Asia Pacific have been leading on a number of those. So a number of countries have already seen rollout of sort of global letters reminding G7 and other leaders of their long support and need to continue their support for the Global Fund. There have been videos. There have been a number of days of action in different places with global colleagues attending or adding value to the conversation. And so we just wanted to take this moment before the end of the campaign to just get a sense of where we can do more of that over the next few weeks. So we have colleagues from Japan, from the US, from Canada, and from France lined up, but also time for discussion and opportunity to hear from others who are on the call. And we do want to give the floor to colleagues from civil society in both the UK and South Africa as co-hosts at the end of the call for any sort of latest updates from their end on how events at the event itself and any other events around the pledging summit are shaping up. So I'm going to start with our colleague from Japan, Masaki. I think you're on the line with us, and we wanted to ask you to share your update, and then we'll go to Colin from the US, Ekta from Canada, and Leo for France. But I know there's many other colleagues from those countries online and from other countries. So again, we will open the floor for discussion after that. But Masaki, if I could pass it over to you for your update.
Okay, yeah, thank you very much. So firstly, I will explain about the current situation of Japan, especially political situation on Japan, and how it will affect the Global Fund replenishment, Japan's pledge. So, also that how say what we can do about it. Yeah. Firstly, probably you know that how say yesterday the new prime minister who is a woman Ms. Sanae Takaichi became the Japanese prime minister, and also the new cabinet of the ministers was organized. And today, the state ministers and also parliamentary and vice ministers were also nominated. So currently, and by today, the Takaichi cabinet was established. So how say, and so that we are in very early stage to say something about what we expect on the Japanese pledge for the Google Fund. Will how say what kind of situation will be there, and also it is very much early to decide what we can do to advocate for the new cabinet. So it is somewhat very much challenging situation is now. Yeah. Basically, you have already known that the Ms. Takaichi, the new prime minister, is very, very conservative person. And of course that we need to praise that we have the first female prime minister. It is somewhat good, but anyway, and she is so conservative, and she has been always opposing all of the gender equality related legalization was the policies also, so that how say for the civil society working on the gender equality and the civil society working on the HIV/AIDS, everybody has been very much how say we are very sad to see this cabinet, despite, and she is the Japan's first female prime minister. So the cabinet is how to say, the ministers are also how to say, different from we had expected. As a expected outcome, the outcome we had expected. And for example, the candidate Shinjiro Koizumi also, so that also that currently the ruling coalition has been already broken. The Komei party, who is the more liberal party, left, and the new ruling coalition was established with the Japan Restoration Party. It is also very much right-wing party, so that the politics will be far more right-wing approach compared to, for example, the former Prime Minister Ishiba. So that we are very much, how to say, troubled, and also that are very much worried about the current situation. And also, how to say, if, for example, the other party, who was the candidate of the partner of the LDP, and the people, how to say, the Democratic Party for the People, if DPP become the one of the ruling coalition party, it had been more hopeful for us, because that the DPP had some good politicians who have been supporting the Global Fund so long, so that we expected that even the Takaichi is prime minister, and if DPP joined the ruling coalition, it will be hopeful. But unfortunately, the DPP didn't participate in the ruling coalition, and the JRP, Japan Restoration Party, joined, so that we are very much troubled about the further advocacy strategy and for the how to say, Global Fund pledge and pledge. So so currently the situation is there. So we need to take a few days, at least a few days, to develop our new strategy to approach the new government. Also that we need some intelligence on, for example, the current financial minister Katayama, and how we can approach Ms. Katayama as a financial minister. She will be one of the key persons to decide the the amount of the pledge of Japan. So that we need a little more intelligence, and also a little more days to develop the new our strategy for the new prime minister and cabinet. This is one issue. And secondly, anyway, on the timing of the pledge, it is already how to say, we have only 1 month to the pledging conference, so that it is highly expected that, I would say, the Japan's pledge will be in the pledging conference, around pledging conference, so that November 21 or so. And so that we need to start our advocacy campaign for the last stage. And we had we submitted our Japanese national petitions. Number is the 6,175 petitions we submitted to the Ministry of Foreign Affairs and also Ministry of Health, Labor, Welfare, and how to say, and the then the how to say, the how to say, the parliamentarian vice minister who received this this petition became the digital minister also, so that maybe we can also that he is one of the very strong supporter of the Prime Minister Takaichi, so that we probably it is one way to approach Mr. Matsumoto, who is the former parliamentarian vice minister of foreign affairs, and now he is the digital minister. So some kind of the approach we need to take, and also how to say also that how to say that we have 4 weeks, so that we will develop the strategy, talking with the friends of the Google Fund Japan, and find some ways to advocacy and share with you anyway. So this is the second issue, and about the amount of the pledge. Yeah, how say we have significant challenges. The big issue is that currently the Japanese public opinion is very much right wing, and they have been opposing the Japanese ODA, and also more exclusive than before. So we need to we need to overcome this tendency. But anyway, so that we submitted 6,000 petitions of Japanese people. That how say it is to prove that there are many Japanese people who support the high the high commitment of the Japan to the commitment to the Global Fund. It is to make it visible, this kind of the Japanese national existence. So it will be I think that it is somewhat workable to as a campaign, national campaign of Japan. And after that, probably we need to organize an international petition campaign. But anyway, so we need to analyze if this kind of international petition campaign is workable in this kind of the very right-wing public opinions, and also very right-wing the cabinet and the prime minister. So anyway, so we need to take a little time, a few days, and also with some more intelligence on what is the most effective to advocate for them, and to get the highest amount of the pledge from Japan to the Google Fund. Anyway, so I will stop now, and if you have any questions, please share with me. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Masaki. We don't get to have you on calls all the time because of the time difference. So we really appreciate you making the time today at this critical sort of moment. And it's really helpful to get a sense of, where things are at and just how complicated the next few weeks for you will be, and with colleagues in Japan. But 6,000 signatories on a letter is a great starting point with a new government in terms of trying to focus them on something like this. There are a few comments in the chat, but mostly just thanking you for this update. So we will come back to questions after we've had a few other quick updates. But if colleagues do have specific questions for Masaki, I'd say welcome to use the chat in the interim. But do want to hear from a couple of other countries, because Masaki, this is a very difficult situation in Japan, but you have other colleagues in very difficult situations around the world. So now we're going to turn to our favorite and maybe longest problem child of this replenishment. Colin from the US is going to share a quick update around the US and where we're at there. Colin.
Sure, everybody. And Mark, do you want to go, or you want me to do it?
Oh, sorry.
I'm happy to help. Let me get on the screen for you. Well, I just say cautiously, there are talks going on that could produce a U.S. position that is much more favorable than we would have guessed. So can't share too much more, except for there is a possibility for a message out of the administration with a multi-year commitment, and maybe even a matching rate that is quite helpful. and that word might come out in advance of the replenishment, so other donors know it, and a message may come, about be said quietly to other donors. There's nothing more I can say than that, but I will say that the political leadership of the State Department's attraction to the Global Fund, for whatever reasons, whether it's commodities or its inclusion of the private sector, it is helpful. Colin, to you.
I think that was great. And I know a lot of donors to get through. So back to you, Katie.
Wow, that was incredibly brief. and full of all of the key pieces that we were looking for from our colleagues there. So cautiously optimistic. I was looking for like a fingers crossed, OG to send across the screen, but I couldn't find
a fingers crossed makes sense. Just a thought. It's good to be quiet about it. I think for a few days, there's some possibility for good things. I just want to give you hope. Keep doing what you do. Advocate with fire, but maybe not all is lost.
Well, maybe, and fingers crossed, and you'll keep us up to date. But I think the interesting piece I took from that, which for me is new sort of information, is the possibility that it might come before November 21st, which could be, if it is as positive as you're hopefully, fingers crossed, don't be too public about it, but hopefully could be useful.
It could be public, or it could be just conveyed to the major other donors, but even that is helpful.
Indeed.
All I have to say.
Okay. Thank you. And I know there've been a lot of effort over the last, sort of 9 months plus, building on, many years, which I think is probably why you might be where you are today. So keep it up and keep letting us know as your global colleagues how we can support, when and where, and when or where we should send what level of appreciation, if we can get that far. So I'm going to turn to our colleagues a little bit further north than Mark, and closer to my home, because it's the same country. So I'm going to ask Ektha from Results Canada to come in with a quick update around Canada.
Thanks so much for that, Katie. Can you hear me?
Yep, very clearly.
Awesome. So our ask is for Canada to invest 1.37 billion Canadian dollars to the Global Fund. And that's a slight increase from the last announcement, which is about $1.21 billion. So earlier on in our campaign, we were told that even a maintenance pledge would be extraordinary given the current political and fiscal climate. But in our more recent engagements, we've been told to continue pushing, especially at the political level, which we are taking as a positive sign. That said, we are expecting our federal budget to come out on November 4th, and there will likely be cuts to ODA, as the government has already publicly committed to reducing spending across departments by 7.5%, starting with budget 2025. And this will likely have an implication on the Global Fund announcement as well. So in response to this, Results, along with our partners, have intensified efforts to urge Canada to safeguard its ODA commitments. And we've been citing the Global Fund to demonstrate the tangible impact of Canadian leadership in the global health space, particularly as other major donors retreat. And we know the Global Fund file is currently at the Prime Minister's level. And we also know that Carney is supportive, and all he needs to see at this point is multi-partisan support across political parties, if Canada makes a strong pledge, that is. So we, along with our coalition of 24 organizations, are really leaning in on engaging MPs across party lines. So We recently organized a parliamentary reception and Hill Day where we met with close to 30 MPs and also got a dozen of them to send letters to the Prime Minister in support of the Global Fund. We're also targeting a group of conservative MP champions to write a joint letter to Carney to demonstrate their support for the Global Fund. I know our friends at HIV Legal Network also organized a reception yesterday. So we're doing everything we can to get MPs to show support. So at this point, it's very unlikely that Canada will make an early pledge, although we've told them if they want to make an early pledge, we are happy to create a platform for this. But all likely indications is that it will be at the replenishment event. We still don't know how much the commitment would be, and these decisions happen very last minute, as you all know, but we'll continue to push for this. In terms of how this network can support, we'll have a budget announced on November 4th, and we are preparing our response, which will include a lot of messaging on how Canada's contribution to the Global Fund should be protected. So we're happy to share our messaging around with this network, particularly GFAN Africa and GFAN Asia Pacific. If you can amplify this message to show that this isn't just from us, it's from the world, that would be helpful. The second is if the UK and South Africa can continue to reach out and put pressure on Carney to show up at the pledging event. I mean, he's not going to show up if the commitment isn't going to be strong. So putting pressure on that front would be helpful. The third is we did have an international G7 development ministerial that happened last week. The chair summary is just out. Again, not super strong language on health, and there's no mention of the Global Fund or any of the other global health initiatives. But there will be another foreign ministers meeting that's happening on November 11th and 12th in Niagara. So if the UK, for example, can continue working the room and talking about the Global Fund, that would be helpful as well. That's the only moment we see between now and the replenishment event. That's it from me. I don't know if anyone has any questions. I see Robin, Chris, and Lee on the call as well. If there's anything you want to add, please jump in.
Thanks.
Thanks, Ekta. I think you covered everything very beautifully. Just to add, we do have the Global Fund's Scott Boulay with us in Ottawa this week. So with the HIV Legal Network, we are awaiting confirmation of a meeting with the Prime Minister's office for either later today or tomorrow. So really hoping that that happens. But we have had some very successful meetings on the Hill. We had a senators meeting on Monday, a parliamentary event yesterday, and just thank everyone for all of your sign-ons to our letter our open letter to the Carney government, which was written in partnership with the Stephen Lewis Foundation. It has been delivered to Prime Minister Carney. It's still open for additional sign-ons, so please visit the HIV Legal Network website. And in addition to that, with CAN Communities Alliances and Networks, formerly known as the Canadian Aboriginal AIDS Network, we will be reaching out to Indigenous ministers with some very focused Indigenous messaging around the Global Fund and the importance of the Global Fund to Indigenous communities around the world. Thanks so much.
Great. Thank you both very much. And thank you for flagging the work that's happening this week, Robin. And, we stay tuned to see if that meeting happens and what the outcomes are of some of that more specific sort of outreach through CAN, et cetera. And flagging the November 4th budget and the general sort of ask for colleagues here to consider amplifying some of those asks and some of that reaction, I guess, to that budget that we're expecting on the 4th here in Canada. So I'm going to move to Leo from France. I'm seeing a lot of discussion in the chat, so encouraging colleagues as our time wanes on this call, but encouraging you to use the chat. But first, I'll pass it over to Leo from Coalition Plus in France for a very quick update on France. I'm sure it will be very quick. So because there's nothing terribly interesting or new going on there this week.
Hi everyone. Yeah, nothing is happening in France. Nothing is happening. It's really, really calm. It's a steady government. We loved it. No, we have a government at least. It's a new thing. So we have a new government. There's a few new heads in key positions for the ministry that we're interested in. Ministry of Health, the Ministry of International Partnerships. The Ministry of Foreign Affairs is still the same, which is a problem. But we have a government. The meaning behind that is that we are also discussing the budget bill, and it's going to be hard because while arriving to the government, like the new prime minister, the one that was already before, but the new old prime minister, if you followed a little bit, like gave some trade-off to the socialists on key internal French issues, and it's also like creating a tense opposition with the right. So we are not sure that the budget will pass. If it doesn't pass, new political instability, new political crisis. In the budget bill, there's a 700 million cut for ODA, which is a lot, and there is not a lot of room for the pledge. We have different analysis depending on the organizations, and they are not really optimistic. They are quite pessimistic. But the thing that we are really pushing is that it doesn't really matter what is on the budget bill. Of course, it matters on the long run, but it didn't really matter on the previous replenishments because the pledge made by Macron was before the budget bill were passed. So there is like huge margin, and Emmanuel Macron can still decide of a nice pledge, of an improved pledge. And in fact, I was not really convinced by that when we learned about the German pledge of 1 billion, because for us, we only saw the decrease, but it made like it increased the pressure for the French government. The fact that it's 1 billion, they don't want to fall behind Germany, and they don't want to fall like below 1 billion, I think. I hope so, please. So yeah, we really, really need some pressure in France, but also from the outside, from the international community on Emmanuel Macron. He is the target. Don't get fooled on that. Emmanuel Macron is the main target. He is the one deciding. Even if the budget bill is a bit shallow, or if the ODA budget is too thin, he's deciding, and we will find the spaces for the pledge. So that's where we're at. The budget doesn't look really good, but there is still some space and some opportunities for advocacy towards Macron. So that's that.
Okay, thank you. I think that's helpful. A reminder of who the main political target is on this, and some of the underlying sort of perspectives of, a little healthy competition can help keep up the pressure. So we do always enjoy those dynamics. It's quite fun. We are completely over time in terms of, where we hope to be at this point in this call. So I do want to give an opportunity to Courtney and Carthy for sort of updates around the co-hosting of the replenishment. And so I'm sorry not to turn it over to everyone for an opportunity for questions, but again, the chat, if there are questions for Leo or Eksha, Mark, Colin in the US, Masaki, please use the chat. But also, just a reminder to all colleagues, still working away on the pledges. In Sweden, there's a letter that was shared there by Pernilla, and then other, at the European Commission level in Brussels. Please do make sure that you're using and leveraging the network and our support as you can over the next few weeks, because this is what it all comes down to. So this is what we're prepared to support with however we can, and make sure that we leverage this network and its members as much as possible. So Courtney and Carthy, if I could pass it over to you just for sort of a quick sort of update before we have to finish the call.
Thanks so much, Katie. Yeah, on the UK side, just to say, and I'll post it in the chat, there was some media coverage last week around some concern around a 20% cut to the UK's funding. Hearing from the UK, that decision hasn't been made. And so obviously our advocacy continues over these next few weeks to ensure, especially as a co-host, that the UK delivers at a minimum a maintenance of £1 billion of the replenishment. Just very quickly on the co-hosting, I just wanted to share in terms of the reception that took place here in the UK on Monday. I've already mentioned the private sector pledges that were made there. The event brought together the UK Foreign Secretary and the South African Foreign Secretary during his visit to the UK. Again, I can post the full speech of the UK Foreign Secretary in the chat, but just given that she was appointed recently, and I appreciate has also been engaged in at UNGA, just some positive comments there around sort of the critical role of the Global Fund, how that links to UK life sciences, growth, trade development, which I think is the kind of angle we'd expected to hear from the Foreign Secretary. I'll stop there, but I just noting the updates that have been shared by colleagues in terms of international pressure, and we'll connect offline in terms of how we can, continue in terms of the UK helping with that outreach to other donors as well. Thanks.
Thank you, Courtney. Appreciate it. I'm not seeing Carthy online, so maybe we've lost her.
I don't think she's joining, Katie.
Oh, okay. Sorry. I thought we were hoping, but thank you for sharing that there. So thank you everybody for sharing the information. And again, the listserv is never more active than in these weeks ahead. So don't hesitate to share information. And also, we do typically follow as GFAN every 2-week kind of schedule for calls. We don't have a call scheduled next week, but we may, depending on how things sort of play out, both in France, Japan, and in other countries, we may, have an extraordinary call next week or and in the days leading up to the replenishment. But we will just see. But we will let you all know. And I'm seeing Mike with his hand raised, and there's 2 minutes left in the call, Mike. So I'm going to pass it to you, and you're going to have to be very, very brief.
Yeah, it was just an entreaty just to sort of say that we're in a very regular, active conversation with the UK and obviously tangentially South Africa. But just if there are any sort of key political points or intel that is useful for the UK government in their outreach to your donor governments, please get in touch. We have been sort of reaching out to a number, to sort of get the latest intel to try and feed that back. But if we can create that loop, if there are any points or particular people that it would be helpful for the UK to reach out to, then please get in touch with us. Thanks, Katie.
Thanks. No, that's helpful, Mike. So we will just putting up there, all of the plethora. I enjoy a call where we have slides where we use words like plethora, because we have many, many tools to help you with your advocacy. If you're hearing donors talking about, set-asides, or what about, some innovative financing, or, messaging around, that's really anti sort of ODA in general, as well as, trying to remember what pledges have come in. We have all those tools on our website for you for quick reference over the next few weeks. Hopefully they are helpful to you. And hopefully, if you do have any questions that you're not able to find the answer to, you can send us a quick message, and we will see what we can do to help you get the information that you need to move your advocacy forward. So that's the end of our time. Thank you all for joining today. Thanks to all the colleagues who jumped in and shared and resources in the chat, including the really, really helpful malaria report that was released yesterday, showcasing the potential impact of cuts to the Global Fund, or reduced funding anyways. So thank you, everyone. Have a good rest of your days, and don't forget and don't hesitate to reach out to us and the network as colleagues over these next few weeks, while you all try to bring these pledges home ahead of the replenishment. So thank you, everyone. Have a good rest of your days. Keep in touch. Thank you.
Bye, everybody.